Hello, I am Peter Freer. I am founder and CEO of Play Attention, and welcome to ADHD at Work, Strategies, Confidence, and Career Success. That's what we're going to be talking about today. My background, just so you know who I am, is in education. I have a master's in ed, and early on, I was uh, working with both adults and children who had ADHD. This is back in the 1980s, mid 1980s, having um, concentrations in mathematics, computer science, and programming and physics. I decided I could build something that would help them succeed at work by increasing cognitive skills that support executive function. And that's how Play Attention came into being uh, over 30 years ago. So I have been doing this for a long time, worked with thousands of ADHD people. So you have come to the right place, definitely. Now, the agenda today is going to cover a wide territory. So, number one, before we begin, it's really smart if you get rid of all your distractions. If you're not watching me on a cell phone, then go ahead and turn the cell phone off or flip it over so you don't have to look at your emails or be distracted. Obviously, this is one of those things that we have if we're ADHD, and this is one of the ways to counteract it. Turn off the TV, close the door to the room that you're in, and give yourself time for you. And that way you can absorb as much as you can out of the webinar. And yes, we will be recording this presentation, this webinar, so that you can have a copy to share with your friends, or if you need to review it, because there'll be a lot of good information here for you to take with you. So, in the agenda, how ADHD shows up at work, even if you are a very high performing manager or business person, we'll talk about that just briefly. Common workplace challenges, including procrastination, time blindness, and working memory. The link between emotion regulation and then your workplace stress. ADHD and executive function. Do you have to disclose? Now, these questions are really important and salient. Do you have to disclose to your employer that you have ADHD? Can you ask for work accommodations? What strategies, that can you do that will help you stay focused, follow through, and feel more confident and productive? And then finally, we'll talk about, as you can see down here, the last one would be how to create lasting change with the proper support. So the first thing on our agenda is high performers, right? High performers absolutely feel uh, that what the what happens to them when they have ADHD at the workplace. This is super important. And you probably have seen in media that you've got Richard Branson who runs huge corporations is ADHD. Einstein was ADHD. So one of the things that you understand as a basic tenet here is that absolutely you can have ADHD and you can be highly successful, but the background knowledge is really imperative. High performers typically work twice as hard behind the scenes just to keep up. And this is true. You may find this in yourself. You may, this may resonate. Why is it that I have to work so darn hard? It seems like I'm always working, and I see my colleagues don't work half as hard as I am, and they're in the same place. If this resonates with you, raise your hand, and we'll see how many people among us in the audience actually feel the same way. I have to work twice as hard, and it is exhausting. Yeah, thank you. Keep them coming. That's the majority of us here. It is also when you do that, when that becomes your norm, that I work twice as hard, whether it's twice as hard to please my employer, twice as hard because I can't finish things on time, twice as hard because I don't start things right away, or I'll start 20 things and I won't finish them. If that's you, that's not sustainable. And it's not only exhausting, it's not sustainable. And that's why you're here, most likely. So, with that being said, today's webinar will also cover strategies you can use to uh, to be able to cope and be able to manage yourself at work and succeed. The common work challenges we face. We'll start with procrastination because, when you're a child, if you always put things off, and let's say you came home with homework that should be a 20-minute homework assignment, you fought with your parents because 20 minutes then, ended up taking 2 hours because you procrastinated. And then people told you you were lazy or stupid. Well, you know that you're not lazy, that you work twice as hard as everybody else, and you're definitely not stupid. But getting started for a person with ADHD is so hard. If any of these resonate with you, feel free to chime in at any time. And at the end, by the way, if you have questions, I'll take them at the end and I'll do my best to answer you at the end of the webinar. But if any of this does resonate, always just say, that's me, or I understand, or whatever. It's fine to do that. Time blindness is a major problem at work, right? I could get this done so quickly. I'll have this done and the report done, and I'll have it on my employer's desk. My boss will be so happy. And then you get in front of a computer, and all of a sudden you find out it's 3 hours later than you thought it was going to be. And you go, what happened? What happened? Does that resonate? That is called time blindness. Working memory, trying to hold multiple pieces of information in your head at once. And this could happen to you. Let's say you're trying to plan for something that you're supposed to do, right? And you're trying to plan for it, and you have to put all these puzzle pieces together in your mind to get this done. And you keep dropping the puzzle pieces. You can't remember this piece. Who's doing that? How am I going to get there at this time? How am I covering that? Who's going to do that? That's your working memory. And if that resonates, that you understand as well. It can be incredibly frustrating to you, and it makes you feel like you can't get things done on time or you can't put things together. It can absolutely cause increased stress, and we'll talk about that as well. And that's part of the exhaustion I think we all experience because of these things. The emotion regulation is a large problem for many of us here. Sometimes, if we're triggered, we can have an explosive thunderstorm, right? Or I get a negative feedback on a project that was late, that I turned in late, that I promised that, would be there a week ago. And then I get some negative feedback on that, and I just can't take it. And that we call rejection sensitive dysphoria. So that can turn your entire day upside down, can turn your entire day upside down. It can turn your entire week upside down because many times, and this may resonate, it's not on the screen, but it may resonate with you as well. If all of this, I can't let go, I just pack it into my backpack. And then all of a sudden something triggers me, and all of a sudden all of that explodes out of my backpack because I cannot release it until I explode. Then I release it, and it's out of my backpack because I carried around the entire week or just the entire day, but then I explode out of it. And if that makes sense to you, and then you say, well, I have trouble with my colleagues at work, or I take it home and I have trouble with my significant other, then you kind of know what's happening now, right? I hope that makes sense. I hope that everyone understands how we tend to package things together and we hold on to them. The stress connection. So all of those things that we just mentioned increase our stress level, right? And then if we don't have good executive function, we don't have the ability to manage those things like time blindness, procrastination and so forth, then the part of the brain that is responsible for paying attention or self-control or planning, well, it goes offline. And now we're really frustrated. And so when you are stressed, you make more mistakes, and then sometimes you blow up, as I just mentioned, you blow up at a colleague, and they just start, and you probably have experienced like, I don't get it. I don't get, I just said this. I don't understand you coming at me like this. You ever heard that? And they don't understand why this is happening. And probably at the time you don't, but later when you cool down, you do. Hands up if that resonates. Does that make sense? Are we backpackers? Do we do this? That's what I thought. So just mentioning this so that you understand, I understand you, and we understand the way our brains work. Now, we don't seem to have a lot of control over it, and that's the problem. And that's, one of the reasons I created Play Attention is to give us the control over it. So there are things that we can do, and I'm going to show you some of the things we can do that are going to be able to strengthen this. So remember all of those skills that we talked about that we need to be able to plan and organize are called executive function. And many of you here probably know what executive function is. Many of you here do not have any clue, never heard it before. So for those of you who already know what it is, bear with me. For those of you who don't, I'll explain it. All of these challenges at the workplace that we face are governed in the brain. And they're governed by this conductor called executive function. All of these pieces, right? And these aren't all the pieces, but there are a good many of them. All of these pieces have to be regulated and working so that we can function throughout the day. Now, the conductor of this orchestra is executive function, right? And you can think about it like this. Think about working memory as the woodwind section, motion regulation as the strings, mental flexibility as the percussion section, and so forth. When all of those are not regulated well, we have weak executive function. And some of these skills may be deficit. You have two major problems here. Number one, the conductor is not strong enough to make all of these work together. So when I am the conductor and I come out with my baton, right, I'm going to conduct. So everybody's scattered doing what they do throughout the day. Think of all of these skills as being the sections of the orchestra. But when I, as the orchestra, the conductor, the orchestra leader, come out and I go, right, and I have the baton up, then we start firing together in synchrony. That's good, strong executive function. Now, there are two problems. If the executive function, the controller, the orchestra, right, the conductor is not functioning well, well, then things can go awry. And if I'm weak, also, second problem, if I'm weak in one of these areas, then that can be a problem as well. It doesn't help the conductor out. Imagine the woodwind section being very weak. Got one woodwind player on a piccolo when you need a whole section. That's a problem if you're going to make beautiful music, if you're going to be successful at work. Does everybody understand the metaphor I'm using here? It's a little bit easier to understand using that metaphor, I think. If that does make sense to you, please let me know, because sometimes it's so complex a problem that it tends to be overwhelming to us. But I hope this makes sense the way I'm describing it to you. Thank you. Thank you very much for contributing. So, working memory, we've talked about. Emotion regulation, we've talked about. Mental flexibility, we did not talk about. Mental flexibility means that I have the ability to change midstream. Now, this is difficult for ADHD people, right? Because mental flexibility is usually a weak skill. If someone switches our schedule up last minute or tries to throw something else on our desk when I'm already overwhelmed, well, my stress level goes up to here because I can't manage that. That's mental flexibility. You know what I'm talking about. I know this resonates with you. If my self monitoring is not there, then I have time blindness, right? I'm not checking on my workload and how, when I'm doing work, and I'm not checking to see if I'm getting things done in a timely fashion. I can't self monitor. That's another troubling area. I can't even start the task, right? There's procrastination. I'll get to, I know I've got all day tomorrow to work on it. I'll just put it off till tomorrow afternoon, then I'll get it done. And then tomorrow afternoon comes and you don't have enough time to get it done. And then your stress level goes up. You're bursting the top of the thermometer at that point. Organization and prioritizing. If we have difficulty doing these, we are not able to get our jobs done well. And then we get caught in it. And then when we get caught in it, we get negative feedback. I can't take the negative feedback. I may have some kind of rejection dysphoria. And that makes my whole day turn upside down. It makes me feel a little paranoid. Why are they always after me? Why does it seem that everybody just complains to me about my work? Inhibitory control, right? Can I prevent myself from just blurting something out? And this is definitely tied to emotion regulation, right? Can I self-regulate in emotion regulation and not blow up? Can I not make those impulsive statements? They're very related. I hope this makes sense. Remember, executive function is the conductor that makes all of these things play together well in the sandbox or in the orchestra. It's the conductor. But if any of these orchestra sections are weak, well, then we have an additional problem. Because even if the orchestra is playing in top form, your section is not going to sound good. All right? Again, I hope this metaphor makes sense to you. It was an easy way when I first heard of this years and years and years ago. I thought, well, there's got to be a way to explain it so that it makes sense. I think that's one of the best metaphors one can use to understand how this actually how it works. So let's address some hard questions here. Do I have to disclose to my employer that I have ADHD? And this is a really salient question. It's very important to understand what your position is and what you can and cannot do. So the pros to doing this, if you want to take the initiative to tell your employer, then they understand you actually that ADHD is real and it is going to be a problem in the workplace. They could say, well, I could help you, right? And this is if you have an understanding employer. It's 50-50 on that. I've had employers who were absolutely inflexible, and I've had employers who would actually accommodate. In this case, they may be willing to assist you and make some accommodations, right? So they know that if they invest in you, it's going to pay off for them because you're going to be more productive. Now, you have to, if you do tell them, you have to kind of surmise. Maybe you interview some other employees or something like that so that you know where your employer might stand because the opposite could actually take place. That's the pro. The con is your employer may not be knowledgeable or understanding about ADHD and may think you're making excuses and you're lazy and you're just dumb. So, and you know that's not true, but how do you convince your employer because he's seeing something different and he has no clue what ADHD is. He has no clue what it's like to live in that world. So then you have to educate him, and that could be problematic. So if they don't understand what ADHD is, they may be hesitant and say, "No, either you straighten up or you're out." Is this making sense? Many of us have been here. And these, should I say, should I tell? Right? We should be able to say, right? If we feel like it's necessary. But it could also be a poor tactic to use, right? We don't know unless we do some surveilling, right? Some reconnaissance. We find out what we're up against. So If you do have a conversation with your employer, right? If you actually decide this is a good idea, be prepared. Take notes. Come in armed and ready with notepad in hand, right? So you're going to outline your current challenges and concerns. And just by viewing this webinar, and you can get um, the webinar tomorrow in recorded format, you can go over the things that are really problematic to you and you can outline them. You list the possible accommodations or solutions, but you also list the positive things you bring to this job, right? My office manager is ADHD as can be, and he thinks outside the box. And he is a software tester on top of that. So if there is a way to break something, he can think of doing it. He is one of the best. And quality control, fantastic. So it is, a benefit to have him around because he does do all of those things really, really well. Do we have to accommodate? Absolutely. We do everything we can to make certain he is successful. Is that your employer? Maybe, maybe not. You might know and you might not know. So feature how you mentioned this in your employer's conversation, how you and the company and fellow colleagues will benefit from these accommodations, right? That's a good way to kind of put it in perspective for your employer. Can you ask for accommodations? Well, in 1990, Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that was done so we could improve access and create accommodations for people who had disabilities, various disabilities. The American Disability Act recognizes ADHD as a disability. Now, there is, as in all government codes here, there is kind of a caveat. The act can require the employer to provide reasonable accommodations. But here's the caveat. As long as it doesn't create undue hardship for the business. And I understand that. If it's super expensive, it's a $10,000 accommodation, the employer's going to go, I can't afford that. I'm not going to do that. So they've created that caveat, but there's another caveat in here. According to the American Disabilities Association, not everyone who has ADHD is a qualified individual. How can you possibly say that I am ADHD? Well, the second phrase actually outlines that. This is Nancy O'Mara Ezold, an employment lawyer. If a person has ADHD, but it doesn't substantially limit any major life activity, then they're not going to be qualified under the ADA for any help. This is super important. Now, if you have a child with ADHD or you're a teacher here and you have students at school, if they are diagnosed as being ADHD, does that mean they can receive accommodations? Well, the law has that loophole, that caveat. Maybe. But in this case, unless it really affects their academic performance, no. If it doesn't affect their academic performance significantly, then no. And it's the same for you. If it doesn't affect your job performance much, you're not going to get any. So everyone, is this making sense? It's a great law, but it definitely has loopholes in it so that you actually have to have um, some significant portion of your workday disrupted, or you can't do it because of ADHD, and you'll have to document that. So when it comes to that, then you have to be prepared, and you will have kept a journal regarding a lot of the things I've already previously mentioned. What keeps you from doing your job as best you possibly could? And you make a list of here's how it affects my job performance in these ways and bullet point it down. Then you can list the possible solutions. And I will come up with solutions for you right now so that you feel comfortable and looking at some of the things that you could do or could be accommodated with at work. This is by the Job Accommodation Network, this list that you'll see by the Job Accommodation Network. If you have hyperactivity or impulsivity, see if your employer will give you structured breaks, right? And in those structured breaks, maybe you go outside. Maybe you have a tennis ball that you bounce on the sidewalk off the building, catch it, bounce it off the sidewalk, and you get some time. Or if you can just walk down the sidewalk, or if you have a park close by, you can take a break for 10 minutes, come back and be refreshed, get some energy out. If they have a little gym nearby, you can get on a treadmill or a bike, a stationary bike. That's a structured break, and it gives you that physical outlet. Secondarily, you can utilize a job coach, and that job coach can teach you and help reinforce the techniques that help you, uh, curb your hyperactivity and your impulsivity. Now, do many smaller companies have a job coach? No. Do larger companies have, in their HR department, have job coaches? Yes. Will you get one? What, if anyone here answered that question right now, could you get one? How would you answer that? Would that be a positive yes, a definite negative, or would it be a maybe? That's right. It would be a maybe, right? Um, in this case, it's a maybe. Maybe you will get those depending on how much it affects you to get work. Thank you. A lot of you got that. All right. So that's what we just learned. Now, some really small companies don't have any, and I think someone mentioned that here in the comments. Some smaller companies don't have any obligation to give you any accommodations whatsoever. However, small companies will do it if they want you. They will help you at times if they want you seriously enough. If they don't, then it's not a good fit, and that's probably the best idea not to take a job there. Larger corporations do. Allow the employee to work from home. Now, this is something since COVID happened, a lot of people do already. So that is also a possibility. Review conduct policy with the employee. So they'll give you a written employee manual, and they'll say, this is the way we expect your behavior to be. And then you can create a checklist from that of things that you must do daily. One of them will be not blowing up at colleagues, right? One of them will be not to be hyperactive or impulsive in meetings. So they'll go over that. It's not a lot of help, but it doesn't hurt. Adjust your method of supervision. If they give you someone who's a mentor, then it can be life-changing for you. Will employers do that? Everyone's so busy. Many times they will not, right? But it is a good idea. Use services of EAP, all right? And if you are interested in getting some outside help, definitely look up EAP. Use services of EAP. Provide private workspace. And this is super important as well. If you don't have your own office or your own cubicle, many times giving you something where you're not distracted by people buzzing around, because obviously in the workplace, people like to talk, right? It's a social place at times in many workplaces, and they want to socialize. They want to say, "Oh, I had so much fun last night. I did this. We're having a get together here," and so it turns into a social gathering, and that's fine if you have that kind of workplace. But if that distracts you, if there are things in the office that distract you, then it might be good to get a private workspace. If you're having trouble with focus and concentration at work, there's that private workspace again, right? Quiet. And if it's not quiet, you can put on noise canceling headphones, right? Or perhaps I don't, I found that it's different for everyone because some people say, well, I love white noise. I love pink noise. I love brown noise, right? Uh, it doesn't make any difference to me. They're all distracting to me. But some people do feel some type of relief when they have that type of noise. Just as for my curiosity, how many people here like to have that kind of thing going in their ear? Type of white noise, pink noise, um, green noise, brown noise. How many people enjoy that or find it useful? Okay, that's a few of us, not a lot of us. It just depends on you as the individual, right? So it's really important to understand yourself enough to know. And if you haven't tried it, use it as it's free. You can get it on the internet, you know, white noise, just looping over and over again, and try it. Pink noise, green noise, brown noise. They're all different, slightly, right? Find out if there is one that works for you. That's also a good idea. Now, again, working from home, if no effective accommodations are able to be used in the office environment, that means you get set up your own personal workspace at home where you're not going to be next to the TV. You're not going to let the dogs walk through during the day. You're not going to let your cat jump on your keyboard. If you can create a really good workspace at home, then that's a good idea. Not a bad idea if it will actually help you work. Many times, though, if as an ADHD person we work at home, well, we get just totally sidetracked because there's a lot of stuff going on because it's home. So sometimes it's good. It's a good idea. Sometimes it is not. It depends on you personally. Uninterrupted work time. So you want to make certain all those disruptions are set aside, right? If I am not using my cell phone at work, right, I turn it off because I do have a temptation to look at Facebook or scroll through TikTok or Facebook or YouTube videos. And then I find myself having been there for an hour, right? And if you can avoid that, it will make a huge difference. Taking allotted breaks as needed. And this again, is something you personally must understand about yourself. If you need to get up and walk around, because sitting at a desk may not be your preferred method of work, standing, using a standing desk, using a treadmill desk, not a bad idea. I've seen them all work. But again, not one thing works for all people in this case. Find out what you could use and what will work for you. That's, giving you these lists, it's giving you ideas about what you could use for personal accommodations. You don't want to buy something like a treadmill desk and something like that. And then you get on it and then you start, the next day you come to it and you've got your jacket, you know, draped over it. You got some papers on the treadmill, and then this was not a very good idea. But for some people, it makes a huge difference because they can get that movement, that energy flowing, and they can target it into their workspace. And then minimizing marginal functions to allow focus on essential jobs, right? Essential job duties. If you get distracted by small things like it's your turn today to clean the fridge, it's your turn to make coffee, um, try getting those minimized so you're not distracted by all that. Because, going down that rabbit hole of making coffee in that morning, and then somebody comes up to talk to you and they start talking. You have the coffee pitcher, the coffee maker glassware in your hand, and you're talking and then you forget you got to go get the coffee. And then when you go get the coffee, somebody's there and they start talking. And then by the time you get the coffee made, a whole half hour or 40 minutes has gone by. And you have no idea when. Why? How? Making sense? Does it sound like you? Time management. So this is a real problem, very real. You can assign a mentor. This is really good. If you've got a friend there or your employer's a great person, you say, hey, could you just let me know. I'm going to start this project. I think I can have it done in an hour. Just come check on me, right? That's a great help because it's now a community and a social thing rather than just you figuring out 3 hours later and you look at your watch and go, oh my gosh, I'm not even close to being done. I just started thinking about this and I missed it. So having a mentor is a really good idea. Provide to-do lists. And many of you probably use this. For some of us, again, it's a great idea. But for some of us, we just haven't posted all over the place so many, and we looked at them so long, we don't even read what they say on them anymore. Anybody here understand that one? I've got so many up, been up for so long, I have no idea what's on them anymore. I don't even look at those. And then I start pasting stuff over the top of those. Does that makes sense? Because after a while, it gets to be, um, overwhelming. However, for some of us, does that work? To-do lists, post-it notes. Yes. Making the list. Yes. For me, making lists is super important. At times at night, I will make a list in my mind and even say it into my phone, or I'll make it and put it on my desk. Um, that way, I don't go to sleep thinking about the list. List is there. It takes care of itself. I look at it the next day and I know what's on my list and what I need to check off. So providing that for myself really works for me. Does it work for everyone? No. Is it a possibility? Yes. So meetings, to discuss expectations are super important. And we do this at Play Attention, all week long. There are scrums, there are meetings. We discuss what has been done, what we expect to get done, and our expectations all the time so that we're all on the same page. Because nothing is worse than going into a meeting, not having done anything, and having to fess up to that. And it holds us accountable, right? And that's really important for someone who has ADHD. I've got to know that people are expecting, and then they're going to actually not wait 2 weeks. I'll have a day or two, and then they're going to check on me. That's the meeting. Assistance with prioritization. If you have that mentor, the mentor can say, what's on your list today? And you read it off, and they go, what is the number one thing you have to do first? And they can discuss that with you. That's super important. Assistive technology. A few people here said, I use the Pomodoro timer, right? Just a timer. It's fine. You have apps that help you, buzz you when time is up. You can set it for 10 minutes, at an hour, and it'll vibrate on your wrist, like this young person is doing right here. She says, oh, watch just told me I've been an hour on this and I've got nothing done. So, and even calendars, I use calendars. I use Google Calendar. So I get reminded when I have meetings. I know I have more meetings after this webinar this afternoon. I know when, I know where I'm supposed to be and how I get there. I have to have them because I'm so busy that I need to be reminded. My wife is a very good uh, mentor to me on those kind of things. She actually helps me do that, and she knows that I need the help, and then I, in return, help her. So, having that kind of relationship is really valuable. It's kind of like playing catch with each other, right? I catch. Thank you for telling me, hey, here's yours. Make certain you wanted to get that done, right? So you're playing catch, and that's a good relationship. Here are all those notes that we keep up so long that they just get to be a bulletin board that nobody looks at anymore, right? So tips and strategies. Let's talk about these tips and strategies that we can use. You break your tasks into micro missions. So, and it's that whole can't eat the elephant all at once. It's too big a job, can't do it. Let's take a little of it at a time. Break your tasks into micro missions, and you can do this by listing it out, right? I have this report to do. Let's spend 30 minutes and I have an hour. Let's spend 30 minutes on research and background information and getting my statistics or all my data together. Then I take the next half hour to put all those data in a format that's going to come in. And I can break that into 15-minute segments. Oh, I could do this in 15. The writing will take this long. The typing will take this long. The printing will take this long. So you see all of the little pieces that make that big project happen. And you have a time limit set on those pieces. That's a very good way to do it. You break it down, right? And by the way, if you're an instructor in anything, right, I teach martial arts, been teaching for 40 plus years. So when I teach and I can see that the student is struggling with the technique, I break it down. Okay, let's get our feet correct. Once we get the feet correct, okay, your body position is correct. Now let's try this. We'll turn the hip like this. So you break it into component parts, and all of a sudden they understand. Oh, I never really saw that when you showed it. So breaking it down is a really good teaching technique. It's also a great way for you to teach yourself how to get things done. Make sense? Anchor your time. And that means by using timers, calendars, things that mark time, right? Even music playlists. So you get an idea of how much time is passing. So I love the music playlists, as long as you don't get distracted by your music, right? You know, Taylor Swift's song lasts this long, and if I have three of those in that playlist, at the end of that, that's 10 minutes. I know I should be done by then, right? Or just a timer. I can be doing this for 20 minutes and try to get this all cleaned up in 20 minutes. Set it. So that's very, very useful. Calendar alerts, always useful. Anchor your time to something that you can measure and it is there for you. And that is very functional, very easy, very cheap. Externalize your memory. And here are all the lists. Sticky notes, project management apps. You can get, some are free. I think you can get freeware management apps on the web. Whiteboards. I have a whiteboard right here. Um, and I can write short-term and long-term goals on that board. They are your best friends. However, if you make, 500 of them here, and it just becomes rather, after a while, it's useless because I don't even look at it. So want to make certain that they are meaningful and try to keep them within uh, a sense of being purposeful, not just random and that I just keep slapping stuff up here I'm never going to do because it makes me feel good for a few seconds. But the reality is I'm never going to do it. So what you're seeing behind me is worthless. But a short list that you check on daily, um, something like a whiteboard that you can say, I got it, check it, or erase it. Those are good. Build transition rituals, right? Short, predictable actions that help your brain shift between tasks. And this may be something that it could be this simple. When I'm going to switch between tasks, I will stop and go, okay, it is time. And now kinesthetically, I'm feeling, all right, now it's time to get started on this. And I'm increasing my energy for it. Let's get started. Let's go. And just that little ritual helps my brain go, time to stop over here, and it's time to focus on this. Because we all think that we are great multitaskers. And all the research on multitasking is generally negative. 99% of it is negative. People don't multitask well. The brain is good at doing a task and then task transition to another task switch, task transition to another task. We do that well. Doing two, three, four things at once? No. One of the easiest ways for you to ever see this, I was driving behind a person the other day and I thought they were drunk. Their car is weaving over the double line, it's weaving over the white line. And I thought, when I hit the four lane, I got to get away from this person. They're drunk. So I get on the four lane and I'm going past this person. I take a quick look and it is a woman and she has both forearms on the steering wheel and she's texting. I work with the automotive industry, with technology, with neurotech, and texting while driving is more dangerous and kills many people. It's more dangerous than drunk driving. So that is multitasking. We don't do it well. So when you say, "Oh, I do these things great," yeah, I'm great. No, you're not. The reality is the human brain does not multitask well. And almost all the research, 99% of the research says if you didn't multitask, you'd get things done faster. Make certain you're aware of that. And remember your ritual. Let's get go. Let's go. Let's get started on this. Change my focus. Regulate before you react. Pause for a breath, a walk, or even a glass of water before responding under stress. I am terrible for doing that. When I have an email that has irritated me, I go ahead and I'm ready to fire, you know? And then again, I have to give my wife so much credit because she'll come and go, why don't we just hold on that? And then tomorrow, when you've cooled down, let's respond then, and I'll help you with that. So she is actually helping me regulate. And that's been a very good idea for me for many years, many years. Not embarrassed to tell you that. Regulate before you react. Oh, we must be wrapping up. Play attention. Here's the good news. Play attention skills can be strengthened. Executive function skills can be strengthened at any age. I work with senior citizens up to people who are in their 90s and 100s, and we work with kids as young as age 6. But like muscle building, it requires consistent targeted training. So if you want to use this as an intervention, it is really, really good. Um, it is fantastic to help you build the executive function. Remember, in executive function, you have two problems. You have the conductor, which is executive function, that regulates all of those cognitive skills. And then if you're weak in those cognitive skills, that's another big problem. And play attention is why this is exactly why I did it 30 years ago and why it's still, the number one neurocognitive training program in the world, shipped globally in 10 languages. It's a remarkable program that allows you to wear this little wristband, and the wristband allows you to control the apps on the screen by mind alone through neurotechnology to actually see your attention and then develop the skills that you're deficit in. We also can help you by providing a brief assessment. Brief is an acronym, all right? So you see the last two letters here? It's executive EF, executive function, right? So you're building, basically an index of executive function. So when you do this assessment, the brief assessment, it will tell us what particular needs you have. Remember the whole list of things that I said, here are things that you may need work on. The brief will pull those out and disclose those to all parties concerned, which would be you and someone who will work on the brief assessment with you, one of our professional consultants. And that way we know, both of us, you and the folks that play attention, know exactly what your needs are. That brief assessment is super, super helpful. Now, those generally are like $50 because you will be taking the assessment. Someone will then go through it, calculate all of the responses you've given, and give you a 40-minute um, review so you have a full understanding of what's happening. And by the way, if you're here with me at the very end of this webinar, you get a discount on that brief assessment as well, just because you know you've been kind enough to sit here through the webinar, and we'd be delighted to help you with the brief assessment. That is a really, really good assessment. How you can understand yourself even more in depth, and the brief assessment is done by it's been worked on for many, many years by a separate company. It is not a product of Play Attention. So we do have the rights to distribute those, and then we can help you understand what your problems are, what your challenges are, and how to basically learn to be successful. All right. So that's what play attention does. That's what the brief assessment helps with. Become a more productive member of the team. So if you would like to do the brief assessment, um, type in brief and also web disk. Um, you don't even have to mention web disk. If you are here in this webinar and you type in brief, then I'll just make certain that you get the $10 discount on that assessment right off the bat, just because you came and you're kind enough to have stayed. With that brief assessment, you're going to get a consultation. It's free. It comes with the cost of the brief assessment. And that would be very helpful so that you can understand what the brief is telling you, and then you understand more about yourself. Does that make sense? So again, brief assessment if you want it, you'll get a consultation. If you want a separate consultation on play attention to see if it's a right fit for you, just type in consultation and someone will contact you to say, okay, let's set up a consultation together and we'll know if play attention is a good tool for you as well. So that would be type in consultation if you want to understand more so that you're see if play attention is a good fit. Again, we've been doing this for many, many years. We work with many different partners, including huge banking systems and things like that. So that use this in HR. Also, if you want, I'll be doing a webinar next week on ADHD and parenting. This is one of the most difficult aspects of being a parent, is if you have a child that has ADHD and you don't understand the way that child actually processes, it can result in a really painful relationship at home. So if you want, just put in parenting and we'll send you the link. So if you'd like to come to that, you can. So there's all kinds of free things to request here. One, if you want to come to the parenting webinar, put in parenting and they'll send you a link to do that. Number two, if you'd like a consultation about play attention, which is absolutely free to find out if it's right for you, type the word consultation. Someone will be in touch shortly with that. And then if you'd like the brief, many of us put in our request for the brief. If you'd like the brief assessment, they'll send you a link on how to do it. You get the $10 discount on that from this webinar. Remember, that is not a play attention product. It is an outside company that does that, but it is a fantastic assessment because it tells me so much about myself. So please put that in. Are there questions right now that I can answer for anyone here? So if you do have them, now's the time to type them in, and I will do my best to answer your question. Hopefully the webinar was so good that I didn't leave you with many. All right. That's the quietest I've ever seen anyone about asking questions. I must have done a good job. I thank you so much for being here. And as friends, I really appreciate the fact that we stayed and we got to talk about this. It was really a very, very pleasant experience for me. I hope it was for you. Again, even though I'll sign off of the webinar will still be left up. So again, if you want the brief, type in brief, and we'll know what you want. And then you've got a consultation. If you want that, type in consultation to understand what play attention is and how it would help you and your family. And then if you want the parenting webinar, type in parenting. It is, if you are a parent of an ADHD child, you know how difficult that is. And again, anything else we can do, let us know. And thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend coming up.